The West is a dystopian wasteland of moral degeneracy. Usually, when you hear a white person talk about moral degeneracy, it's some wingnut denouncing LGBTQ rights or women's reproductive rights or whatever. But that's not what I mean. I'm talking about real things here. The real moral decay of our society is illustrated in the way all mainstream political candidates can openly support war crimes currently being inflicted on people in the global south without being immediately removed from power. The way monstrous war criminals of past administrations can endorse a liberal candidate without causing self-proclaimed progressives to recoil from that candidate in horror. The way you can have the two viable candidates for the world's most powerful elected position both pledge to continue an active genocide without instantly sparking a revolution. The moral degeneracy of this civilization looks like living lives of relative comfort built on the backs of workers in the global south whose labor and resources are extracted from their nations at profoundly exploitative rates, while raining military explosives on impoverished populations who dare to disobey the dictates of our government, day after day, year after year, decade after decade, acting like this is all fine and normal. Being born into a Western civilization is like waking up in the middle of a massive lynch mob. Something terrible is happening, and everyone's going along with it and telling you it's fine and it's normal. And even if you're able to figure out that what they're doing is wrong in all the chaos and confusion, you find yourself powerless to stop them, because the whole thing has so much momentum already, and there are far too many people blindly caught up in the frenzy of bloodlust for you to make everyone change course. Just continuing to live among them makes you complicit in their actions in many ways. But you have nowhere else to go besides this lynch mob town you were born into. So you just move to the fringes of the mob and share your objections with the few people who will listen to you. Our civilization is cruel and savage, but we compartmentalize away from its cruelty and savagery and laugh at our sitcoms and vapid comedians and make believe the worst things happening politically in our society are the mainstream culture war wedge issues that pundits and politicians prefer to keep us talking about. We live out our lives sedated by entertainment and social media and food and pharmaceuticals, while genocide, nuclear brinkmanship, and ecocide unfold all around us, thinking ourselves good and virtuous if we are kind to our pets and hold the correct opinions about racial justice and vaccines. If we as a society were actually good, none of this would be happening. Moral clarity would find all this intolerable and would reject it and eject it by any means necessary. Which is why the powerful pour so much energy into keeping us all sedated and confused. A lot of power and wealth rides on our lack of moral clarity. There is much wealth to be gained by exploiting labor and extracting resources around the world. There is much power to be secured by murdering, starving, and terrorizing any population which refuses to bow to the interests of the Western Empire. This is why the Western Empire has the most sophisticated propaganda machine ever devised, because so much wealth and power depends on ensuring the West remains in a state of moral degeneracy, and that Westerners do not regard the citizenry of the global South as fully human. I personally reject religion, not because I am some fedora-wearing wanker who makes fun of people for believing in God, but because I reject all aspects of the profoundly sick culture I was born into. Because I don't resonate with religion, I often feel myself pulling away from religious-sounding jargon framing the actions of the Western Empire as demonic, or calling the U.S. the Great Satan. But at the same time, I completely understand it. When I see the inside of a child's skull for the 100th time, next to video footage of IDF soldiers mockingly dressed in the clothes of dead or displaced Palestinian women and playing with the toys of dead or displaced children, while Western podium pontiffs pretend to believe the military they're arming has done nothing wrong, I do struggle to find adjectives strong enough to describe what I am looking at. Maybe demonic is as close as you can get, even if you don't believe in actual biblical demons. That's what I'm talking about when I say the West is a wasteland of moral degeneracy. The type of civilization which would allow its government to do things like this necessarily has a collective conscience that is being so warped and twisted by propaganda and self-interest that it's the same as not having a conscience at all. If you can't regard the vast majority of the population of this planet as fully human and equal to yourself, then morally speaking, you are no better than the perpetrators of slavery and genocide we've been taught to judge negatively in history class. And that's the norm here. It's what we were born into. It's what we spend all our lives being trained to accept as normal.